Hi, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and this is Lorebreakers. This is episode 4. Okay, pass me my sword. Take it away, Mike.
Okay. So, yeah, we've decided that we're just going to chat for a little bit about weapons. Because, you know, everyone's heard the story about the hero with his magical flaming sword that goes off to defeat the evil king. Or it's a staple of, basically any form of fantasy that's ever existed. So, yeah, we're just going to chat about favorite weapons and then just, we're going to spitball a few ideas for... Yeah, see if we can come up with something that might be a little more interesting, a bit different.
I mean, for me personally, I think the first one is... It's not a sword per se, but blades is the Blades of Chaos in God of War.
Yeah, I kind of knew you'd go straight for God of War.
Well, it's a named weapon, but it's also not, the typical sword. You can use more than swords itself. I mean, Ruby's got the entire thing of every weapon is a named weapon, which... A, for effort, and B, for, the person has to, go through and be like, okay, background character, what do I give this person's sword name? Christ. Golden Goose. Okay, pass.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. To be fair, the Blades of Chaos are cool. Even if it is two swords, it's two swords that he uses more like a whip more than anything else.
Yeah, two chain swords. That ain't chainsaws.
Different franchise, mate. Different franchise.
Can't wait for that episode.
When we start talking about what was it, like dystopian far futures, then that's we're gonna talk a lot about Warhammer. That's gonna be fun before the episode gets taken down.
Can we get in a lightsaber chainsaw?
Hey, I'll entertain it.
But you also got the part. Yeah. General Grievous like, Kenobi. And then they're on fire too, because fuck it, it's our world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Kenobi. It's like, Kenobi pulls out the chain lightsaber.
You have one, I have 4. Is that really named lightsabers?
No, there's not many. There's 1 or 2. I know there's the Darksaber, which is the one the Mandalorians wield.
Yeah, but that's not a lightsaber, is it?
I mean,
in the traditional sense.
In Star Wars, you have 2 kinds of melee weapons. You have lightsabers, you have vibro blades.
Yeah.
Vibro blades are basically just, here's my fancy sword with a blade so thick it's like 1 atom. It's down to the molecular level, and so it can cut through anything, and it can ward off lightsabers. And then you have lightsabers, which is, I must swing a sun at your face.
I mean, it makes sense. The Jedi are pretty utilitarian.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if you just pulling out a sword, it looks cool. But when you're just pulling out a little stick which turns into a massive plasma blade, that's a whole other message you're sending.
I mean, what would you call Anakin's saber if you had to give it? I'd call it Storm Warden.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, that'll work. But so we're just gonna go through naming various lightsabers now.
No, it's I think the main ones him, and then Obi, and then we'll call
I know
Mauls.
I know the hilts have various names. I think the one that Kenobi uses is called the Arbiter.
That works for him.
Yeah, that works for him. And then there's a few others Dark Guard and Sentinel and so on. They name all the little pommel guards more than anything else.
I call that the name of the blade. And to be honest, that sounds way cool.
Yeah, it does. It does. But no, apart from that, I mean. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I can't remember the one that Dooku uses, but I saw
Johnny Corkscrew. Got him.
I knew you were going to drop that in at some point.
So for the listeners, we are looking up famous swords as research, and I found out Smee. I'll put a picture on screen for once, rather than being a pure here's the thumbnail.
Yeah.
This guy, his sword in the book is apparently called Johnny Corkscrew. That is too good of a name.
You just know that never appeared in any Peter Pan cartoon. So,
I mean, he probably pulled the sword up, but he never said it by name.
No. I can't imagine that 5-year-old sat in front of the TV and Mr. Smee was like, "Ha! Now you're going to fight Johnny Corkscrew." It's like,
Mom,
no,
Dad, what's a corkscrew?
Exactly. you just know. You know what, maybe they'd have done it in the 90s, but we never saw that growing up.
Here's Johnny. And then just go silent.
You know what? Yeah, they could have played that if they just named it Johnny.
Yeah.
Mr. Smee calling his sword Johnny, especially if he talked to it. That would have been cool.
Johnny CS.
Yeah. So that's probably the best they could have done, isn't it?
Actually, they could go 2-for-1 reference. Johnny CS Lewis.
Maybe. But Yeah. Just. But yeah, like certain iconic weapons, definitely, like lightsabers, for example. The weapon is named rather than actual the weapon itself having an identity that has its own. I messed up that sentence, but you get what I mean. Like the weapon has got an identity, but rather than just having a name. Like
you want a sword to do what you did to that sentence to the opponent.
Sort of, yeah. Just for example, like Excalibur. You hear the name, you think about the name. You don't really, you think about you hear the name, you know what it means, rather than just it's a particular fancy sword with a particularly fine edge, or it spits fire. It doesn't really do any of that. It's just maybe it does. I don't know my Arthurian legend, but but you hear the name, you know what it means. It's the icon. That's where the icon is. But
sword and stone, Pendragons for life.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, other than that, I know you want to talk about Frostmourne, but I'm going to hold off on that.
I know
because that's going to take about 20 minutes in itself.
Listen.
So I'm going to sidestep and let's talk about some other stuff, like Lord of the Rings. They have a few named swords, right?
Yeah, they've got a few named swords. I mean, you've got well, I was gonna say Narsil, but that's not really accurate now because like that sword had like 3 different names. Narsil and Andúril are the ones that everyone knows. Narsil was when it was held by Isildur's father at the Battle of the Last Alliance.
Yeah.
And then when it was reforged into Aragorn's sword, then it was called Andúril, which I think means something like Flame of the West or something. Or I'm not even going to try and translate it without having it written down in front of me because I know I'm going to get it wrong. And then you have Glamdring, which is Gandalf's sword, and then you have
yeah, it is Flame of the West. I just googled it.
Ah, fair.
Nerd.
I'm glad I got that right. But it's you've got Glamdring, which is Gandalf's fancy sword. You have Sting, which is
I kept confusing that with Needle, which is from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Needle not as cool of a sword as Sting.
No, but it's Needle, Sting.
It's the same style of thing, but yeah, Sting is cooler. And then you've got what was the name of?
Did they actually give the name of the swords that Aragorn thing Legolas use?
They probably have a name. I don't know it.
Probably some Elven Welsh thing.
Yeah, it's probably some fancy Elven thing that Tolkien has spent a lot of time coming up with. I don't think the dwarves had any names. I think they just called them all I think just called them by what they were, like bearded axe and so on.
I mean, they were also pretty utilitarian though.
Yeah, it seems kind of weird. They crafted all the fanciest, shit, and they never actually bothered to name any of it.
I mean, why would they? It's like we put all the artistic effort in making it.
True. What isn't? Sort of reminds me of a character. I'm gonna say this because you were giving me shit for this. I'm gonna name it League of Legends.
Okay.
Which is there's a weaponsmith in it called Ornn, he's a god of the forge, and he has a very interesting line when he used to describe all the weapons he made because he's made a lot of them.
Just not along here. I'm just not along here. League of Legends stuff. Not arcane. Watch arcane.
But no, he has a particular catch line which is my weapons don't have names, they have ambitions.
Yeah.
And that's the idea that they sort of they earn their names later on by doing crazy things with them.
What's the name of the scythe that's a demon that Cain uses? What's the name of the scythe that Cain uses?
Rast.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The Darkin weapons.
The reason I know that's because of League of Legends fan comics from AU universes.
Yeah. The Darkin, describing them as weapons is kind of a bit of a disservice because they're technically not weapons. They're technically demigods that got stuck in a weapon at one point.
So weapons.
They're possessing a weapon. They're not the weapon themselves.
But they are a weapon.
They're wielded as a weapon, but they also turn into the person that wields the weapon. So
yeah.
It's kind of the idea that Aatrox, who's basically the greatsword version, the guy that goes around killing gods. The idea is that he's imprisoned in the shape of the sword, but he basically possesses and corrupts and twists any human that picks up his weapon and then picks up the weapon and turns him into basically a copy of himself. It's kind of funny, the idea that this guy was probably just sat on a fucking hill somewhere for like 200 years until some random
somebody help.
Yeah, until some idiot fucking stuck his foot on him to tie his shoelaces or something, and suddenly, the God Slayer is back.
Hey kid, pick me up. Can you hear me? Pick me up. Oh, yeah, it was like resonant.
You know
like
you want
steel,
to.
like messing about.
Yeah. It's like, hey, shiny, 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 shiny.
Sun, gleam on me. I need him to see me. Gleam.
But it's fun. You can have there's lots of really. The thing is, I was tempted to chat for a little bit about the likes of Mjolnir, but then I thought that.
I just remember what Mjolnir is then.
Yeah, the Hammer of Thor.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, we're meant to be talking about weapons from fiction, and I feel like if we start talking about mythology, we're going to end up upsetting some people.
What, you don't like Marvel Comics? You don't like Marvel Comics?
I like Marvel Comics. I love Marvel Comics, but there are people that genuinely believe in the Old Norse faith. So it's kind of like, are we really going to start attracting some ire from just saying that this is cool religious stuff
I'm sure
fiction.
I'm sure like unlike Marvel fans, they care more about the religion than Marvel fans do about the Thor.
Yeah,
I'm just going to put a big sarcastic sign over this now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, you're probably not wrong. You could probably mention stuff like Fem 4 was best Thor, and like you've triggered half of Thor fans everywhere.
I go through Warriors 3 like I go through coffee in the morning.
Exactly. Another.
Boom.
But yeah, I, as much as I want to, and I really want to, I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
I mean, more things that ain't swords have names. Just gonna go through them. You got the Cooper game, because I'm gonna bring up my Sly Cooper quota for the day.
You have to include just like Cooper quota in every single video.
I mean, that's going forward. I'm gonna do that now.
Yeah, I mean, we've already made our Tolkien rota, so
yeah. I mean, you're gonna get your WoW quota in.
Yeah, I've got my WoW quota coming. Don't you worry about that.
I mean, just to go on the Cooper cane a second, that one's interesting because each Cooper has they all got the base form cane, but they all modify in unique ways. Like the Egyptian one, Tutankhamun Cooper, has two of them, and he holds them.
Tutankhamun.
Yeah, no, that's his actual name. Tennessee Kid Cooper, that actual name, has a gun cane. Like the hilt is the cane, but it's also a gun.
It's also a gun.
Ryorichi Cooper. His is just a normal cane, but it's kind of also stylized.
Are these just Coopers? It's Cooper, but from Japan. It's Cooper, but from Egypt.
Yes.
It's Cooper, but from the Midwest.
Yes, it is. It is definitely that. They've got a World War II British fighter pilot one whose cane is
an aircraft.
Yes.
Oh, for fuck. Please tell me it's like Transformers, where it's like the plane comes out of the cane.
Now, we've not seen this, but we've always seen him in action in terms of him flying the plane.
And the gear stick is a cane.
We don't know because it doesn't show the cockpit, but the plane name is the Crane. The cane.
The cane.
The cane.
You know what? That you need to have that, where like the fucking gear stick for it is the fucking cane head.
I mean, the cane itself is also a way to open the Cooper Vault. The only way to do so.
I feel like having those scattered around all the place is not a good security system.
Oh no, it's all the same cane, but because of in the universe there is magic, and it's the reason why possibly that no mold can fit in to open it, besides the original one.
Because of crazy magic, which transforms the cane constantly from a fighter pilot into a katana into a revolver. Okay, yeah.
I mean, in universe, there's an owl called Clockwork, who was called that before he became a machine, who was around from ancient Egypt, and he hated the Cooper clan so much he turned his body into a robot. They never say when he did this, but when you go to the Japan level in Sly 4, I think it's around 800 to like 1400, like that time period, he's already a robot. Which means that in ancient Egyptian times, there
was a robot bird running around somewhere.
Yeah, he made himself into a robot back then. He hated people that much. He hated this bloodline so much he dedicated, I'm gonna go 5,000 years in the future with technology and make myself a robot.
Because fuck you.
Because I will fucking murder your bloodline at some point.
Okay. Just to pull it back then to talking about weapons, because as much as I know you love talking about Sly Cooper, and I'm happy to talk with you about Sly Cooper, need to chat a bit more about weapons, particularly weapons in fiction and writing. So,
non-sword weapons. You got Boomstick from Evil Dead, the shotgun.
Yeah, the chainsaw hand.
I don't think that's got a name. It's just called the chainsaw.
I mean, it's still pretty cool though.
I mean, to go into Walking Dead, you got Lucille, the bat.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of other ones that ain't just swords. I mean, you got Crescent Rose from Ruby. That's an easy one to pull up.
Yeah. There is one I want to talk about a little bit. But
Yeah, go on.
So, I was mentioning this about to you earlier, but probably an idea I have, which is for you have a few ideas for weapons, which is on one hand it's like the hero that wields the really awesome weapon which beats the shit out of everything.
Yeah.
You have the weapon that becomes iconic because the hero is wielding it. So for example, your Sly Cooper King stick is the former, and Crescent Rose is the latter.
Yeah.
But a weapon that I kind of like the idea of is that it does crazy things and it is super powerful. But Excalibur is the kind of a weapon that I'll get there eventually. Don't worry. Excalibur is sort of the kind of weapon that the story is built around it. But Keen Fire from the Dwarves series, which is the weapon I actually want to talk about, and it's an axe, so I can talk about it. It's not a sword.
Thought you were going to transition with so from one Arthur to another.
I was tempted.
I was looking at you like, I can see this, and then you're like, he's going to see this, he's going to shoot it down to the dwarves.
Nope. Trust me, I'm waiting for that chance to talk about Arthas, and I know you're looking at that fucking watch just in case. Come on, I can keep talking.
I'm making sure we don't go over time.
Yeah. So yeah, from the Dwarf series by I think it's Marcus Heights. So this weapon I think is very cool. I mean, yeah, it's a book about dwarves, so of course they're all a bunch of legendary craftsmen. They create awesome things, and there's a bunch of dwarves from various clans scattered across the world, and they're all better at different things.
Yep.
This great army of darkness is descending from the north. One of the clans has been wiped out, and suddenly the dwarves have to band together to put an end to it. And the way they can do this is by crafting a legendary weapon that they've only heard myths of, which is Keen Fire. This crazy mystical battle axe which can neutralize even the most powerful agents of evil with a single strike.
Marcus Hertz is his name.
Is it?
I've just fact-checked it.
Okay. The reason why I think this weapon is cool, particularly from a writing perspective, is that constantly the story talks about how amazing Keen Fire is and how it's really gonna it's gonna end everything the moment we get our hands on it. But it's more it's sort of the MacGuffin that you don't have, but what you're going to get, which sort of it's kind of like the
Axe 3 weapon.
Yeah, basically it's kind of like the gold of it's like the gold of El Dorado. It's what you're going for, and it's what you're going to get to in the end.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the idea that all of our effort is going to get this weapon, and it doesn't just take the hero being awesome, because the hero's a dwarf. He's a good blacksmith, but that's it. He's not a great weapon master. He can't fight. So, but the idea is that dwarves from each of the clans, because they're all good at different things, and each of them crafts an individual component of Keen Fire, and you need to get all the dwarves in the band out there to make the axe. And even then, Keen Fire is only secondary objective, because the main plot hook for getting people out there to make Keen Fire is
get them together.
That, and it's also the fact that it's a race more than anything else, because there's two groups of dwarves competing. Which one makes the axe first?
Around the world in 80 days.
Kind of, yeah.
And axes.
Honestly, yeah, you're not wrong. It is that style of journey. It's a bit like the Mummy, actually, where the two groups are constantly screwing each other over to get to.
So the Mummy 2, the Mummy Returns.
It's like, no, I think it's more. Is it the first one where they're actually trying to get out to the city of the dead, and they're nicking camels and shit from each other, and it
happens in both movies.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the one with the cool train scene?
I don't think so. No.
No, they're talking about the first one. We got the plane where they're going through and it gets swallowed by the sand.
No, that's the second movie, isn't it? Or is it? I don't. You know what? We haven't seen the Mummy.
You know what? We're doing that later.
Later. We'll watch the Mummy later. We'll figure this shit out. So
pour one out for Brandon Fraser. He's not dead, but pour one out for the ledge.
He's not dead, but his career is.
No, he's made a comeback. He's making a comeback.
Really?
TV actor, yeah.
Oh, cool.
He's in Doom Patrol.
Nice. But yeah, no. So the idea is that. The idea is that you want to get every single one of these dwarves, and some of them don't like being there. Like, shit goes wrong left, right, and center. They end up emerging out of a tunnel in the middle of the fucking army. They're meant to having to fight at the end without the axe. And so the idea is eventually you have this heroic last stand. Everyone gets there, and then yeah, the axe gets made, and it is what everyone thought it would be. It is this cool badass weapon that does rip everything to pieces. But so you do have that payoff, but it's sort of the idea that using the really cool weapon as a narrative point to drive forwards, and this is what we need, and also it's that thing where the real badass weapon was the friends we made along the way. I'm not it's because the idea, obviously it's a novel series. Everyone goes through character progression and their arcs and shit. So
does the end of the second act everyone have a big falling out and go their separate ways?
On the at the end of halfway through the second book they do, yeah.
Oh my god. What, you like Jenny? No, I like Jenny with the beard more.
I wish
I you know what?
You're joking, but that does actually happen. To be fair, no, I love the Dwarf series. It is a great book series, but
we need to get the band back together.
Yeah, that happens as well. Trust me.
I mean, everyone likes the cliches, man.
Yeah, but there's a reason why the cliches, they're fun. Everyone loves it.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, the Avengers Assemble was just a preemptive get the band back together. But before the band broke up.
Yeah.
So, and everyone thought that moment was cool. So, yeah, no, it's great. It's great fun. Everyone loves it. But question is, are you going to let me talk about Frostmourne before we get to our time limit?
No. Let's have one more talk about another sword, or at least mention another
weapon,
or kind of a quick run through of other things. But you got Soul Calibur series that's based around fucking swords.
Yeah, that's true. It's all based around Soul Edge. That's pretty cool.
I mean, that was the original name of the first game before they swapped it to Soul Calibur.
Yep. We can mention Moonlight Greatsword from Soulsborne series.
You got Master Sword from Zelda.
Yep.
We're basically going to run through all our favorite video game weapons.
Yeah, this is what this is going to be right now, isn't it? Speedrun. But yeah, no, and then
Buster Blade.
Yep, Buster Blade.
Nah, sorry, that's Yu-Gi-Oh card. Buster Sword.
The Buster Blade is
Buster Blader. That's a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure that Buster Sword is a thing.
Yeah, it is Final Fantasy. But it's called Buster Sword, not Blade.
Yeah, you're right.
You got my favorite, the Gun Sword.
Yep, the Gun Sword.
Let's see what else you've got. I mean, Final Fantasy's fucking littered with them.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of is.
Thank God T isn't here. Thank God T isn't here.
Oh, you'd be loving the opportunity to talk about it.
Oh, was it? Rebellion.
Yeah, Rebellion. Yamato. That's on top of that, and also on that one, it's called the Sparta Sword, but it's true though, isn't it? They don't actually come up with a name for it, even though everyone wants it. It's just called the Sparta Sword.
Oh, Leviathan Axe from God of War 2018.
What's it called? The Axe of the Leviathan or something like that.
Leviathan Axe.
Yeah. No, that's a cool weapon. I actually really like that. A lot of people didn't like when it came out that it wasn't the Blade of Chaos, but I think it's a really cool weapon.
I like the idea of it. I don't like it being Kratos' weapon, and the game's been out for 4 years. When you actually go back and get the blades,
yeah, but you liked that payoff though, didn't you? You really liked that payoff.
I've got a lot of problems with God of War 2018. It's a good game, but I have got so many problems as a God of War fan.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It was a big departure from
that gameplay. Oh my god.
It was a big departure from the actual God of War game series, but as a standalone game, I really like it.
Yeah, it also keeps up with the original idea of God of War 3 was supposed to be.
Okay.
Which was basically Kratos goes to war with the Greeks and the Norse gods.
Just fuck the gods, no matter where they are.
Yeah.
Just remember, we're going to see all the gods from all the mythologies, and Kratos is going to kill all of them.
Thor's in the next one, confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I've stole you enough.
You've stole me enough, and now I can talk about Frostmourne.
Okay, let's set this up properly for you. So, it's 2004, a new game has just come out.
But honestly, no. When you're talking about legendary weapons from fiction and how they can be done right, it's difficult to have that conversation and not mention Frostmourne. There's no one that is a big fan of video games and has found this channel and hasn't heard of Frostmourne. But basically, yeah, it's the weapon of the Lich King. It's this monstrous, macabre soul weapon that drains the spirit of anyone that it slays and becomes more powerful. And it's the shard of a demigod that who broke it off from his frozen throne to give to his champion to wield and so on. Like
the reason to play a Death Knight.
Yeah, it's the reason you don't play a Death Knight because you like the idea of being undead. You play a Death Knight because you want to be the Lich King. You want to be Arthas. You want to wield a Frostmourne of your own.
Like, you're edgy.
Yeah. You want to be that level of edgy. But the thing is, like, as edgy as Arthas is, as like, don't get me wrong, his story is iconic, but as much as his story is a bit, on the edgier side, the weapon itself only really emerges later into his initial arc. It is like such that it is that moment of just, I have the legendary weapon now. I mean, he has to sacrifice his childhood friend, his mentor, to get access to the weapon, and he does. But then he just goes through and massacres an army of undead with it, and then goes off and slays the most elite Dreadlord with it in single combat, when before he didn't stand a chance fighting him alone. And then after that, like, the sword, it turns out that the sword itself is cursed.
Who knew?
Yeah, who knew? The crazy the dwarf that he sacrificed, actually.
Don't do it, Arthas. Don't do it. It's cursed.
Yeah, whoopsie daisy. But yeah, and then the idea that picking up this weapon, and no matter what you do with Arthas, no matter what they show with Arthas, he's always in the background, and Frostmourne's always in the foreground. Every time he's shown in these really cool shots, the weapon is forefront and center because you know why you're there. Like, Arthas' story is amazing, but the sword is Arthas. It is the Lich King, because and Arthas isn't actually defeated at the end because he himself is slain. Arthas is still alive after his defeat, but Frostmourne is broken. That's eventually what puts an end to the greatest threat Azeroth's ever seen. It's the sword being broke. Yeah, we don't talk about the later expansion.
Do you want to talk about what happens with the Arthas standing, the Death Knights and all that with Frostmourne when what's her name? From Banshee.
Listen, I think Bolvar is cool, but my god, he mismanaged that fucking fight. That was a terrible fucking fight. To be fair, he didn't have Frostmourne, so
when you got plot armor on your fucking side.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it is kind of cool that, like, you get to see the disparity in, like, between with Sylvanas compared to how she fights various Lich Kings, because there's been 3 of them. She fights 2, and she fights Arthas, and she fights Bolvar. So the fight with Arthas, I mean, when Arthas wasn't the Lich King, when he was still Death Knight, yeah, she mortally wounded him. But then she encounters him again as the Lich King, and that's not a fight. That is, like, it's a dungeon, and Arthas is the second boss of the dungeon. You don't fight him. You spend the entire boss fight running away from him. You aren't throwing your attacks at him. You're throwing attacks at the armies of undead and the ice walls he's throwing up to stop you, because he's just slow marching up towards you, Baywatch style. Yeah, he's basically Nemesis. It's the idea that you can't fight this guy. And yeah, it's the fun, because you've got this awesome, and then she comes back later and beats Bolvar. Ironically enough, the only Lich King to not have Frostmourne. Honestly though, Frostmourne is cool, and in the end, it's only broken by another legendary sword, literally empowered by a literal force of nature, putting everything it has into the weapon, and that's what it takes to put an end to it in the end. And I can talk about the Ashbringer as well, but I don't want to put this too far over time.
I was going to say, I'll let you just start bringing up all the stuff they've done recently instead.
I mean, to be fair,
so what's Sylvanas done this time?
Arthas was done dirty in the latest expansion. That's all I'm going to say. But I mean, in Legion, which was a couple of expansions ago now.
Yeah.
WoW was so fucking. You checking it to make sure we haven't lost our recording again? Yeah, that would have been a fuck. Imagine that. Breaks. The moment I mention Frostmourne, it stops.
Good boy. Good R16. Got him.
But honestly though, I don't want to keep talking about World of Warcraft because I can tell you're just sat there like I'm.
How can I talk about this? I played for like 12 levels as a walking warlock, I think, for like a month.
Yeah, and then you never touched again.
The month my mum got me for Christmas. It was like, oh cool, it's ran out. I'll get it eventually.
Nope.
So anyway, more than a decade later.
Yeah, more than a decade later. I mean, yeah, a couple of expansions before the current one, which was called Legion. They did this thing where they basically gave the player character a chance to wield a shit ton of legendary weapons from across the past of the game, which includes the Ashbringer, the weapon that shattered Frostmourne. It includes what's called the Blade of the Fallen Prince, which is basically just the shattered fragments of Frostmourne put into another sword.
Okay.
Doesn't have the thing that made Frostmourne crazy powerful anymore, but it's still.
It doesn't have the demon base.
It doesn't have it doesn't have basically the demigod level soul of a cursed warlock in it, which was the driving force behind it. But it's still a really powerful weapon. You get to wield things like like a shard of an aspect of a great dragon, and crazy shit like that. But it's kind of a cool opportunity, and yeah, like there is pages and pages and pages of stuff to be talked about for
lore dump.
Yeah, of a lore dump for those. Which we're not here to talk about that. No. We're here to talk about how it's cool for writing, and I think that Frostmourne is a great example of it because at the end of the day, it is just a crazy magical sword wielded by an evil dark lord. But I feel that the way that Blizzard Entertainment, and you won't hear me say this very often, the way that Blizzard Entertainment set it up was done very well. They managed to encapsulate this weapon's reputation immediately, and this weapon does have a reputation. And the idea that any time it appears in the hands of anyone, there is that instant moment of, well, we're fucked.
Oh yeah.
It shows up in one place, wipes out an entire army just from the fact that the guy's holding it, and then drains their souls into his weapon, which he then uses the soul to turn them into an army of his own that's all undead.
Yeah.
I will stop talking about Frostmourne now because we do need to chat about the next section of the podcast.
All right, so this is where we're going to start talking about how to implement. Like, we're probably going to talk about swords for the most part, but like named weapons in general.
Yeah. So, what? Chatting about coming up with an idea for one, or
yeah, so like how you going to start? Like you set up like the first part, I'll take the next, and we'll just keep passing back and forth, and possibly maybe 2 or 3 swords, and how we go.
Yeah, we'll start with this. It's sort of like here's an idea. Let's do the one person says the next word in the sentence game, but with weapons.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, let's start off. Let's start with an axe.
Okay.
So, let's. I'll let you determine the style of its power, but let's call it like a double-headed battle axe. Start with that.
Do you want to give it a name?
Let's call it Oath Cleaver.
Okay.
Yeah, let's start with that. A giant double-headed battle axe called Oath Cleaver.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you kick onto it then.
Okay, its power source is that it draws power from the sun. As long as you are a holy person or a spiritual person, because that way an evil person can use it.
Yep.
So it's not locked out. It's not binary by any definitions of yes or no for who can use it.
Mm-hmm.
So that way an evil person can take it, and it's like the weapon's a weapon. It doesn't matter. It's not a corrupting force.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Okay, so as long as it's wielded by someone with faith, or at least spirituality, you can draw out the power from it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
And it can cut through anything. I'm just going to throw this in because, like I said, draws power from the sun, so it heats the blade up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, draws power from the sun, heats the blade up. In that case, let's suggest that the weapon was created by a sun god who created it purely to spite the rest of the pantheon and threw it and forged it in the heart of his star and threw it down to earth because you guys are a bunch of dicks. Fuck you. Let's see what your creation can do with this. On to you.
So basically what you're saying is, my chosen guy will kick your ass 7 ways to Sunday.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'll see you at WrestleMania with the Oath Cleaver. I could have brought Mr. Socko, which is a named weapon in WWE.
Yeah, I can believe that it's called that. I can believe that exists.
It is literally a sock puppet that he uses to put on his hand to do the mandible claw.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, that's wrestling for you. I can believe that.
I could have talked about all the named weapons in wrestling. I'm going to move on from that. I'll save that for the wrestling episode.
Save that for the wrestling style video.
Anyway, so yeah.
Definitely get around to.
So he's going, my guy will kick all your guys' asses. Okay. So are we making the person who picks this up? This is less world building and more story crafting at this point. So he's throwing it down to the world. Let's say it's gone and cleaved on top of a mountain.
Sure.
So that way someone has to actively go find out what this is. But to make it a bit more interesting, it's cleaved the, like, say, third tallest mountain down to a split straight down the center to a third of its size.
Yeah, and there's a massive crevasse through the middle of it that's like where it's buried.
And I don't know, let's say it's caused a lot of ecological damage to the environment because a mountain's just been split almost down the middle.
That will do.
Back to you.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about its power. So it's called Oath Cleaver.
Yeah.
So keeping the idea that the sun god threw it down there to spite the other gods, if it hits something that was... So basically, yeah, it can cut through anything, but it has the ability that if it strikes a weapon or a piece of armor that's been blessed by the gods, it loses that divine blessing because it literally cleaves through the blessings placed on by other gods as one of its powers.
Okay.
Back to you.
I say for a weakness because someone that strong, it needs a weakness.
Yeah, it needs a weakness.
Besides the fact you need to be a person of strong spiritual belief, I'd say that if a rival god champion picks it up, it actively what is the word? Tries to degrade.
Degrade?
That's the word I'm looking for. Degrade itself, so that way it becomes unusable by the enemy champions.
Okay.
And to get to the point where it'll essentially just rust itself away.
Let's add on. Sorry, you want to push that back to me or?
I think that's one weakness. Do you want to throw a second weakness on?
So the idea is that I like just to add a little twist on that. I think that you could have it so that if someone picks up the weapon and tries to wield it in the name of one of the other gods, that's when it starts degrading.
Yeah.
And then doesn't start, and then it's basically like a lump of rusty metal at that point. But someone can believe in the power of one of those other gods. But if they pick it up and use it for themselves or to spite a champion of another one, the idea is that it won't serve any of the other pantheons' ends.
I get you coming from that. An enemy person to pick it up and dull the blade a bit. But if you use it to kill another enemy's god, though, it's like, okay, my enemy's my friend.
Yeah, basically that's kind of it. Yeah, like if they use it to kill, like if they use it to wield just for themselves or to get revenge or to murder someone else, that's fine. But the minute they try and take it on a holy crusade in the name of their god as aha, I'm so awesome because I've got the sun god's axe and it serves me. Nah, you fuck me.
Or say if it's fights another one of its champions, even if it's a neutral fight.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Nah, doesn't work. Basically, the sun god is watching it, and he's micromanaging this bullshit to make sure you don't get to have fun with it.
He's the railroading DM.
Yes, he is the railroading DM that is sick of his play's shit. That is, I'm okay with that.
All right, so weapon 2 then.
Weapon 2. Let's go with a lance. I think a lance is a good idea.
Okay.
Let's go with. Let me think. Skybreaker.
Skybreaker, okay.
I was going to say Sky Pierce, but that's already a thing.
There's always so many words combinations.
Yeah, exactly. We'll try to avoid the word combination to the last name.
I've got an idea for the last one if I'll take lead on that.
Go for it.
But for now, we're about
Skybreaker.
Skybreaker.
Actually, you know what? I'll change the name. Let's call it Eloquence.
I call it Lorebreaker.
we need a hammer.
He said the thing.
A hammer.
He said the thing.
Name drop. No, wait, let's call it Eloquence.
Eloquence. Okay. So do you want me to just pick up from Eloquence the name?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Lance. Let's go for something a bit different. Okay, let's avoid gods for this one.
Yep.
Let's avoid demons too.
Yep.
Let's avoid just celestial entities altogether.
Works for me.
I say this one was made a long time ago.
In a galaxy
Yeah,
far away.
I almost said it, then I was like, no, on instinct alone, I almost said that. Okay. So a long time ago, say in ancient times, let's go with ancient Egypt, because they probably used lances more, or like spear-type weapons.
Sure. Let's go with that.
A great forge made a weapon for a pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Once the pharaoh got it, he wished to imbue it with more power. So he got one of his court sorcerers to gather up, say, 2 villages worth of people and sacrifice them in order to infuse their souls to the blade, the spear.
Yeah.
And with that power alone, the weapon can do back to you.
Damn. So
got him.
With the so he sacrificed. So an ancient pharaoh has sacrificed a couple of villages worth of peoples to empower this weapon with their. Okay. So I'm going to say that this is a cursed weapon.
Okay.
And the way it works is that it does magical things, but we'll get to that. But I think an interesting tidbit to add on to it is that because of the arrogance of the pharaoh himself in wanting to do such a horrible act to infuse his personal weapon with so much power, that the only way the weapon can be wielded, and it's not just a normal, metal stick, is that the person wielding it has to have that absolute self-obsessed, spirit of, just I am.
Egotistical.
Yeah, he has to be that kind of egotistical monster. It's called eloquence in the idea that it's an impression of civility. When in reality, everyone that wields it is a cunt. Like, literally everyone that wields it is an egotistical cunt. And you have to have that constant self-belief in yourself in order to draw out the lancer's power. On to you.
Okay, so I want to put this on. If you touch it with burst skin, you get that ability of, like, describe eloquence's power.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hold it with, say, metal gauntlets or something, you just have a normal lance. It can't be broken, but lance spear, what was the one we gave it?
Lance.
They're
effectively the same thing in this one.
You just have an unbreakable lance, we'll say, or spear.
Yeah, you just
like,
have crazy.
That's what I mean. Is like you have that instead. It's nigh unbreakable, but you don't get the aforementioned sky-piercing quality of it for eloquence.
Yeah.
What I'm gonna throw this in too is that we can make like a pack weapon too of sorts. That if you want to say wield it without going through that self-belief thing, you've got to at least appease the spirits within. So you've got to find a way to negotiate with 2,000 people to make it up for what it wants, which could be a good thing to have like an actual like astral world sort of projection thing where it's like a person sitting in the center going name your price.
Almost like the Philosopher's Stone then, isn't it? Where Hohenheim had to like appease all the people within his stone to use that power. Yeah,
I was going to say which Philosopher's Stone we're talking about here.
The one that Hohenheim has.
And there's the Full Metal Alchemist quote in there.
Yep. I like that idea.
Okay, back to you.
Okay, well let's add on to it then that someone can do that. Absolutely, they can. If they can manage a way to appease the spirits within the lands, they can draw out its power. But it does still slowly corrupt them over time. So eventually, the more and more they use it and rely upon its power, this could take years. It's sort of like the a Silmarillion style thing where it corrupts and affects the mentality of the wielder over time to the point where they
the wrong way.
Sort of, yeah. Where it twists the personality of the persons until eventually they do fit that sort of mental requirement.
Yeah.
We should probably start talking about the actual powers of the lance now, beyond just it's really hard to destroy and it's really nice and shiny.
Well, that's what I said for like the first part. Just like this is you can use it without actually making the pack thing.
Yeah.
So you gonna throw it back to me now?
Yeah, I'm throwing it back to you now.
Okay. Let's say if it pierces skin, it instantly like drains the blood.
Okay, so we can do it like a blood style thing for this.
I mean, it makes sense that you've had 2,000 people sacrifice twist to it.
True.
Yeah,
True.
It would literally just be like a vampiric type of weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not make it instantly draw it out, but it sucks the blood if it pierces the weapon. So the person being pierced by has to find some way to remove it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it stabs him through the arm, do you have to try and rip the arm off? You cut off by the bone.
That's true. Yeah, because that way it stops it from the only way to stop the lance from drawing your blood out.
You could also use it as a torture weapon for a villain if they take hold of it. They slowly try and pierce the skin of the person, but the other hand is free. And it's like, you can't stop me, but do you want to be slowly drained by blood? Or
you take your own
arm off?
I like that idea.
That's a villain side anyway.
Yeah.
For you, what would the heroes do with it?
What would a hero do with this weapon?
What would a hero do with a blood training blade? Or,
What would a hero do with a
lance?
blood draining blade? That's interesting. Okay. So, damn, I have to think of something good you can do with this weapon. I had an idea for an evil thing you could do with this weapon.
Oh,
but
evil was the easy part.
yeah, I know. Okay. You can have it so that when if you drain the blood of a truly noble person, so the way it works is that when it sucks the blood out of a victim, if it completely drains them and kills them, for a short time afterwards until the spear absorbs the new victim, you can, if you flourish with it, actually spray that blood over a wide area, and anyone that gets hit with it actually has finds their own ability to their own personality or moral compass shifts slightly towards the personality traits of the person that was slain. So
how is this a good thing for good people?
Simple. It's the noble sacrifice idea. So the idea is that if you've stolen this from the you've stolen this from the evil king, and you have to wield this thing. It's the only weapon that can actually put an end to his evil army, because you have to so one of the companions have to sacrifice themselves so you can effectively turn the evil king's army against him, because that's the only way because that way you'll break the sort of like the link of subservience between the king and his army. So it sort of frees them from bondage.
I had an idea for what the good one could be. Is that because these people were sacrificed from an evil pharaoh, if you kill an evil being with it, it slowly reduces the corruption, and possibly if you kill enough evil people that you could break the curse of it and it becomes free, but still keeps the qualities of at least not the blood draining, but at least possibly say, I don't know, it purifies water or something. Something to kind of like purify the corruption.
Okay.
Like the inverse of the corrupting weapon, it's you try and purify the weapon.
You're passing it back.
I mean, you got anything more you want to add to this, or?
Yeah, you could add one last little detail there, is that the more it purifies over time, like just in sort of the reverse, that the more blood it drains, the more powerful it becomes in the hands of an evil being. But the idea is that the weapon doesn't so much degrade as it loses its ability to pierce through anything as time goes on, meaning it sort of, because the idea is that the corruption is sort of like it's less and less and less. It's still an effective weapon, but the idea that it becomes harder and harder to use it to free people as time goes on. So until the end, it sort of becomes a case of just you're literally trying to kill a demon with a normal weapon that's not magical in any way, but it's the only way to save the last souls within it and purify.
I've got an idea for a good one. Going back to that concentration of pure spitefulness, was it egotistical to egomaniac? If at any point you shake confidence in it, it could instantly kill you.
Yeah,
You've got 2,000 plus raging souls trying to fucking vie for control.
Yeah, if you lose that self-confidence, man, the weapon will turn on you.
I mean, you could have it so the hero doesn't have to even take the weapon from the villain. You just got to find a way to shake the confidence.
You just got to break him.
Yeah.
You got to make him doubt himself, and that's it. He'll be too afraid to pick up the weapon because he knows it'll kill him.
The bard at the back, you spineless little bitch.
Death by vicious mockery.
Yeah, literally, you could have it so like that happens.
Yeah, I like that idea actually. Yeah, the idea that the evil king has to have that arrogant self-confidence to do it, to use the weapon. and the heroes don't so much beat him by, by beating him. You don't have that moment of awesome combat between the hero and the king. You just have to break him down until he loses his confidence. He starts thinking less and less of himself, and then he might just have to surrender. He can't pick up the weapon. If he does, it'll kill him.
Evil villain about to go kill the party. He catches the bard fucking his wife. Cooked to death.
Oh, until you find out he has an NTR.
Oh no, he's too strong. He can't be beaten. Oh. I'm pretty sure the ego wouldn't allow that, though.
No, absolutely not.
And so the final trick for tonight.
Yeah, go on. You said you had an idea.
Yeah, it's based off something that I had in a D&D game that I put forward for a weapon.
Yeah.
It's called Void Panther. It's a two-handed, great sword or a bastard sword, if you want.
Okay.
Give me a second. And in it, it's the classic evil demon within thing. But this one forces you to only use that weapon itself. It doesn't corrupt, but it forces you that no matter what, you can't pick another weapon, you can't throw a stone, you can't throw a punch. You have to use that weapon constantly, it doesn't leave your grip. One hand must be on it at all times.
You see, all I'm going to say to that is that a knife and fork counts as improvised weapons. So now.
No.
Cutlery.
I mean, literally, you can't, one hand you've got to use, okay, if I'm right-handed, pass the left hand, that's on the side. Fork. Look, I'm going to use my right hand to eat now. You've got to have at least one grip on it at all times.
Yeah, okay. That's quite funny. You can play around with that. So God, that would make things inconvenient. So you can't pick up another weapon, but you can use another weapon as long as you've got one hand on the greatsword. You can pick up another weapon. God, you become very good with a fork.
You're just there I'm going to fire the crossbow. Reload for.
God, yeah, imagine that. It's I got... Question, does a dragon count as a weapon?
No, it's literally got to the parts where my character was I need to swim, but I've got one hand holding the sword at all times. So he had to literally swim underwater through currents, one hand on the blade, one hand on the hilt, and had to swim with it. So he had a doggy paddle the entire time. Which means stealth missions, I was okay guys, I can't help you. I'm in plate mail, and also I've got a giant greatsword I can't even sheath without having my hand constantly on my back.
So the idea is that you can't even let go of the weapon?
Yeah, one hand has to constantly grip to it.
Damn. I thought it was the idea that you just couldn't wield any other weapons rather than just...
Oh, that's what we made it unique.
Okay. So it wasn't just that you can't wield any other weapon besides that one. It's just that you literally can never let go of it.
It's literally glued to one hand at all times.
Damn. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Question is, so what's the... Let's try to examine it. So that what's the... Because obviously it's a cursed weapon, it's powerful, but there's got to be a way, for example, there's got to be an advantage to using it beyond just being an awesome weapon. So what would be the means that you would go about laterally releasing that grip on the weapon?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
That's what I'm thinking. No, that's what I know, you pushed it back to me.
I know, because I did all the setup.
I know, you said all the setup. Let's have a think. Okay, so you could. I mean, there's a classic one which is just it has to drink the blood of a victim every single time you unsheath the blade, otherwise you can't put it back.
We don't have that problem. We have the thing glued to your hand at all times.
Yeah. So I think the idea is that if you, for example, slay 5 people, if you commit an act of murder, or if you butcher 5 other sentient creatures, so 5 sentient creatures is just 5 bandits in the woods, or an act of murder, which means that you have to actually go out of your way to commit an evil deed. That will appease the demon and release your hand, but there's 2 caveats. 1, you still can't pick up any other weapon unless you're holding the sword. So if you pick up any other weapon, the sword will lash out at you. 2 is that it only works for a certain period of time. If you don't pick up the sword within 24 hours of it being released and keep that grip on it, it lashes out at you. demon inside of it will lash out at you.
Let's modify that a little bit. Where you have to kill people of significance to the wielder. Because just killing any old person just seems a bit, you know. Give me a second as Holy Knight goes on a crusade so I can put my fucking sword down.
It's more that you have to commit an act of murder. So it can't just be if you think the person you've killed deserves it. Like for example, if you just kill a bunch of if you go on a holy crusade and just murder a bunch of people you hate, that doesn't work. It has to be an act. You have to know what you're doing is morally wrong. Like you have to go out. Like you have to literally stalk a farmer, like walking home to his family and cut him down like a few steps from home. That level of evil nonsense.
Nah, because it feels too murder hobo. Like, let's make something a bit more like let's focus on the demon then inside the void.
Go on.
So, the reason that I call it Void Panther initially was just because I got told it looked like a fucking Thundercat sword, and I went, I'm just gonna call it Void Panther, then saying those people panthers and void just sounded cool. So let's go say inside the weapon is a fallen soldier, murdered before his time by comrades. So that's why it has to be people significant to the person you've got to murder. You've got to find ways to justify to break this. You've got to find ways to kill, say, the party you're with, your closest allies, in order to get the freedom to let the sword go because it feels it's been satisfied.
Yeah.
And just over time, that spirit's been so corrupted by its own vengeance and just kind of lawlessness that it has just become a feast upon it.
Okay. So, what kind of powers is this thing going to have? Because if it's just if it's just a really cool sword, which can cut through things really well, there's not really any incentive to pick this thing up as opposed to a +2 greatsword.
One of the things we gave it in the campaign was that it basically, as a bonus action, I wasn't a lot like a paladin, what's it called, witch paladin or something, witch knights. You when you mix paladin and warlock. They've got a proper name.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but basically we
Hexadins?
Nah, well, fuck it, I'll look it up in a bit.
Yeah.
Is that as a bonus action, on top of like doing smite, I could as a bonus action concentrate once per encounter and once per round and use it so it casts Eldritch Blast from the sword as sort of like a wave motion slash. So I attack enemy in the distance, like say we put it 15 feet radius, so I've got to be close enough.
So you've got to say get to potential every time you swing the sword, right?
Yeah, basically. I was going to say that, but you know, it's what I wanted.
It's what you want.
But we don't have the range of that. It's like 15 feet, so it's somewhat balanced. But it is which is Eldritch Blast cast through the sword doing a cut.
Yeah. No, fair enough. It's a pretty interesting idea. So what would be the weaknesses of this weapon then?
Back to you.
Okay, so you want me to think? Now you want me to think of the weak?
I mean, the obvious weakness is that you've got one fucking hand at all times gripping. How are you gonna take your shirt off?
Simply, you pull it off and slide it down the weapon.
Right, just like lean your arm out. Imagine taking the fucking shirt off and trying to navigate through the sword.
Yeah, I think a weapon of it. I think like the idea is that if you decide just to put up with it. You know what I mean? If you just put it with the indignity of just always having a hand on the weapon, that's and you never actually go to the point of having to go through the steps of trying to free yourself from it for short periods of time. I feel like the longer you go without that, a weakness would be that the spirit of revenge within it, the demon of revenge within it, gets a little bit upset with you and starts trying to possess you. So then it turns out periodically you have to deal with these contests of willpower to actually maintain control of yourself.
Let's take something from Spider-Man with the symbiote suits.
What, like with Venom?
Yeah, it can literally if you don't satisfy it enough, which isn't something from Spider-Man, but the idea that the symbiote can take control of Peter Parker's body while he's asleep and just puppeteer it. So even though you're asleep, the thing will puppeteer your body to go out and start murdering.
Sword canthropy.
Yeah, basically.
That's cool. Any details you want to throw onto this one, then?
I mean, I can't really think. Like, obviously, we wouldn't look at fucking sword and fucking what was it? I mean, some people like that, and furries be furries.
Mm-hmm.
Calling you out, M. But other than that, I just think that itself, at least fits it.
I like the idea of if it's being a spirit of revenge that's been wronged. I like the idea that the sword itself actually bears a resemblance to sort of either the weapon wielded by the guy in life, or it looks historic. So it's reminiscent of what that spirit used to wield.
I've got a better one. So to build off that, actually, as you're saying, something clicked in my head.
Yeah.
So it looks like a normal blade until you pick it up. Then it transforms into his blade, and then over time, if you start satisfying it, it'll look like the blade you want it to look like. And then once the wielder either dies or, I don't know, it says becomes disarmed, like holding the sword and that, it'll vanish, and it'll go find the nearest battlefield where the next person will pick it up is.
So it's kind of the thing where it's like it'll almost appear like from a mountain of bodies, you'll just randomly come across it sticking out of a hill.
So say there's a combat somewhere, and a guy loses his sword, quickly scavenge to find one, picks it up, he's now locked in.
I like the idea that it will randomly plant itself on battlefields, waiting for desperate soldiers to grab a hold of them. I do like that idea.
You can also have it that there's two of them about because it goes through the timelines.
It's a time-traveling sword.
So you can have literally like two people meet up. Like, wait, you got Void Panther? You got Void Panther? What?
It's literally they do the Moon Knight thing where it would immediately start screaming, "Kill him! Kill him! Kill him!"
I am the stronger of the two. Well, what if he's got the younger version? It doesn't matter. I'll travel through time again.
Yeah, they just start doing the Conjure thing of just quickly kill him before it's too late.
You could do the Spider-Man meme of the pointing meme. All right.
I think we'll call it that.
Yeah, we've just gone over the hour mark.
Oh yeah, that'll. We try and keep these things to an hour, but yeah, it's always a bit of a struggle.
I mean, we're kind of limited because we have plans tonight. But
yeah,
I mean, an hour is good as is. So that's been the newly titled as just before this episode. Pass me my sword.
Yep, that'll be it.
I've been Zach.
I've been Mike.
This has been Lorebreakers, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.